and almost 2,400 of them were juvenile arrests, which tells us that we have to do more to keep our youth from engaging in criminal behavior. The proactive work of our officers reflects our community to precision policing, which is focused on those who victimize and the places that they commit their crimes. These improvements reflect persistence, often unseen work that is driving real change in our community. These results are not just numbers, they are outcomes of targeted strategies. Again, the work represents intentionality and real strategies in action, such as our Operation Safe Season, which was a multi-agency effort that we kicked off in December to keep our uptown safe during the holiday season. We increased our visibility and our enforcement during peak evening and weekend hours to deter crime and reassure residents, families, and businesses that safety is our priority. I highlight this effort because it was a tremendous example of collaboration with other law enforcement partners from local to state to federal. And I tell you, I will always take this approach to impact crime. The results of Operation Safe Season really speaks for themselves. We conducted 437 traffic stops, we issued 438 citations, we made 54 arrests, and we seized 34 illegally possessed firearms. These outcomes show how targeted enforcement and strong partnerships prevent crime, remove dangerous weapons from our streets, and address issues before they escalate. As we continue building on this momentum from 2025, we already have additional operations in development, and it's important that we look to what's driving these results that we are having, the successes that we are seeing. So I'm going to ask Deputy Chief Jackie Briley if she will come forward to share some of CMPD's strategic initiatives and the efforts that our officers have contributed to the significant decreases that we have experienced. So Deputy Chief Briley. Thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon. My name is Deputy Chief Jackie Briley. I'm the Deputy Chief over Patrol Services. As Chief Patterson shared, we are continuing to think creatively about how we use our personnel and our resources to address crime in Charlotte. We're listening to our residents, we're working closely with our community partners, and we're adapting our approach to meet Charlotte's evolving needs. CMPD remains fully committed to safeguarding this community using strategic initiatives, resource allocation, and technology to promote a safer city, and the results are clear. One of our first priorities was restructuring our crime reduction unit, or what we refer to as our CRUs, for greater impact. Instead of operating as a separate division-based team, in July of 2025, we consolidated our resources to service area CRUs. This allowed us to be capable of responding to more events effectively across the city. These units now deploy based off of real-time crime trends. In 2025, our CRUs conducted over 2,000 traffic stops, made 781 arrests, seized 480 firearms, and recovered approximately 148 pounds of illegal narcotics. This definitely impacted our city's decline in overall crime. Many CRU cases involve repeat offenders tied to high victimization crimes like shooting into occupied dwellings or SOIDs. In one case in October, our Northeast CRU officers observed a suspected narcotics transaction near Reagan Drive. They detained Marquise Brown, age 27, an SOID suspect, and seized 41 grams of cocaine. Brown, with a 10-year criminal history that includes multiple drug-related charges, common law robbery, was arrested that day for felony drug charges and served with outstanding warrants. The following day, those units tracked a fleeing suspect linked to a vehicle in this same case. The driver, Michael Crosby, age 26, was taken into custody in Cabarrus County. He was found in possession of approximately 40 grams of suspected fentanyl and a stolen firearm. Crosby faces multiple charges, including discharging a weapon into occupied property, felony flee to elude, and trafficking opiates. At only age 26, he also had a decade-long violent criminal history. This case highlights the teamwork between our CRUs, our detectives, and our specialized units to remove firearms, drugs, and violent offenders from our streets, preventing future crimes and saving lives. As our CRUs continue to focus and make strides in reducing violent crime, we are also focused on the youth being drawn to these patterns throughout our Juvenile Accountability and Diversion Empowerment Team, or as you've heard before, the J Team. In 2024, the J Team launched across all 13 divisions. The purpose was to intervene early, build relationships, and connect our at-risk youth and their families to resources to prevent recidivism. In August, our J Team investigated an armed robbery that involved several juveniles, including a 14-year-old. The officers arrested all 4 suspects, 3 juveniles and 1 adult. They seized 2 firearms, and later, one of those firearms was linked to a homicide. They continued to follow up with one of the 14-year-olds involved in that case. Since then, that 14-year-old, through the work of Jade, has not reoffended since August. Jade's impact is clear. In 2025, juvenile crime incidents dropped 11%. Violent juvenile crimes declined 9%, and juvenile property crime fell 19%. However, there was some trends that were concerning to us. Juvenile suspects in shooting to occupied dwelling cases rose 26%, and juvenile larceny from auto cases rose 7%. These cases underscore why Jade's work is so critical. In October, Jade connected a known juvenile to a shooting into occupied dwelling case. A traffic stop led to the arrest of 2 juveniles and an adult who also had a warrant. Officers seized 2 firearms, narcotics, and later recovered 5 more firearms in a search warrant. Both of these juveniles were charged with the shooting into occupied case. These cases show repeat offenders commit a disproportionate share of our violent and property crimes, often cycling through our system. Breaking this cycle will require collaboration among our law enforcement, our justice system, our local leaders, and our community. Public safety is a shared responsibility, and we have continued to be committed to doing our part to keep Charlotte safe. Now I'd like to invite Deputy Chief Brett Balamonkey to talk more about strategic deployment of some of our technology resources.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brett Balamonkey. I currently serve as the Deputy Chief over Special Services Group. The Special Services Group encompasses many diverse specialty units: intelligence, aviation, arson bomb, canine, SWAT, dignitary protection, motors, our crime lab, data analysis, and more. A critical function of all these units is how we utilize technology and training to move effectively, or to more effectively serve our community. At our safety briefing last year, we shared a recently launched program that put this mission into practice, and that's our Civilian Crash Investigating Unit, our CCI unit. 1 year later, I'm proud to share those results of a year of the program being implemented. It was created to reduce the burden on our sworn officers by assigning civilian-trained investigators to minor crash investigations. So their responsibility includes responding to minor crashes without injuries and assisting with disabled vehicles and traffic control. The CCIs last year reduced wait times for drivers involved in those crashes and improved patrol their availability for more urgent calls and proactive policing, thus enhancing the customer service by providing dedicated personnel for our crash investigations. The unit is an excellent example of how CMPD uses strategic resource deployment, and over the last year they've made a huge impact on our patrol operations. In 2025, I'm proud to say that our CCI investigators answered 8,538 calls for service, and they completed 6,639 reports. So when you hear those numbers, they sound large, but when you look at those percentages, so that first number of calls answered, that's 38% of all the calls that CMPD got on crashes, disabled vehicles, or traffic control. And the amount of reports they did was over a quarter of all the reports done in CMPD last year. So great enhancement of sharing that load with our professional staff to free officers up to do proactive policing and be engaged with the community. By shifting these calls to the civilian investigators, we redirected thousands of hours for emergency response and crime prevention and community engagement. 1 year in, the CCI unit has proven to be successful successful innovation, saving time, improving efficiency, and enhancing customer service. Another program launched in the fourth quarter of 2024 is our Connect Charlotte. It's an online portal for the residents and business owners to leverage their security cameras to make our entire community safer. With Connect Charlotte, residents and businesses can register or integrate their security cameras. And what that does is that builds an interactive map of security cameras for our entire response area across the city. So this map increases the efficiency of direct, discrete, and secure evidence collection from investigations. So importantly, camera registration to CMPD does not give us access to your cameras. So the difference is, as a resident, you can register your camera so that CMPD and through Connect Charlotte can know through a map. So if there's a crime in your area, we have the ability for investigators to reach out, and it's your discretion if you want to share what was on there, if there was something on there, but it enhances the network of safety across the city, where currently we have 1,730 cameras registered and 1,110 cameras are integrated. So the integrated cameras are the ones that businesses, right, business owners can use that allow CMPD's Real-Time Crime Center and our detectives and professional staff in that room to immediately switch over and be able to see live what's going on. So if there's a call for service, if there's an issue, if there's a concern from a 911 call, you immediately have an officer with eyes on your issue before the officer even may get dispatched or right as they're being dispatched. So the integrated cameras is such a strength, an improvement on enhancing our proficiency with that. They've helped us locate and arrest criminals, demonstrating a real-world impact. In one case from our North Tryon Division, officers observed several hand-to-hand drug transactions in an area known for having some issues. After watching that for a while, they made 3 separate traffic stops. During these traffic stops, officers were able to make 3 arrests. Not only arrests, but they recovered drugs, narcotics, and they recovered cash from the sale. They then go back to the location that the subjects that were selling the drugs and made 3 more arrests for a total of 6 arrests, all done through an integrated camera from a business owner that was tired of having illegal activity on their property. And so, as we look at that impact, they seized marijuana, Xanax, and Oxycontin pills and U.S. currency. This case is an example not just about those arrests and seizures, but supportive feedback the officers received from the community is really the true impact that this has on disrupting negative behavior in the neighborhoods. One community member said that she observed the incident occur, and that her appreciation for disrupting the transactions was heartfelt, right? You had a business owner that said since this arrest that he's seen a huge reduction in the loitering and the criminal activity around his business so that he can get back to making money and having a safe environment. So just a couple really good examples of how registering and integrating your cameras with our Connect Charlotte program goes beyond solving crimes. It has an impact on the quality of life and the overall safety in the community. You know, for more information on the camera systems, for you to register as a resident at home, that we as CMPD cannot see your cameras. We are not able to log in and view your cameras, see your cameras. All we know is that you have a camera so that if there is an incident or an emergency in your neighborhood, we know who to contact to ask for help. You know, and then to integrate your cameras is that integration that you could use through connectcharlotte.org, and right here is one of the cores. So something as small as this, right, is how you, by just adding this core itself, can increase the safety of your employees and the community overall. Because this small little box can give us direct police access to the cameras of your choosing. So just because you choose as a business to say, hey, I want to integrate my cameras, doesn't mean we get all your cameras. You choose. As the business owner, you can say, I don't want my inside covered. I do want the inside cameras. I only want the parking lot cameras. I only want the camera that goes to the back lot. It's really just an enhancement tool that you control. Together, we can continue to build a safer Charlotte by combining community vigilance with proactive policing. And to share more about how the department is moving forward in 2026, I'd like to welcome Chief Patterson back to the podium.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Technology is going to play a huge part as we move forward as an organization. So looking ahead in 2026, I want to reaffirm my top priorities that will guide us in the work that we do. And they are reducing violent crime and disorder, enhancing community engagement and collaboration, and most importantly, improving employee wellness and morale. Supporting our officers is critical to our mission. When our officers are healthy and they're motivated, then they can better serve our community. I expect, and you should too, that the work that we do it with excellence, that we do it with professionalism, and with the highest level of integrity. We made measurable progress in 2025 in reducing violent crime, but we know that there's more work to be done. In 2026, we will expand our data-driven policing strategies, as the DC talked about. We'll continue to strengthen our partnerships with our law enforcement partners, and we will invest in more technology that helps us to respond faster and smarter. Our commitment is clear. Every neighborhood deserves to be safe. Public safety is not achieved by the police alone. It's built together with the community. I see 2026 as a year of momentum, driven by our top priorities and by the dedication of every member of this organization to keep our community safe. Together with our officers and our professional staff, our partners, and our community, we strive to make 2026 a year of safer streets and stronger relationships. Undoubtedly, there will be challenges, but I trust this community and I trust this police department to achieve successes together. At this time, I'll invite Lieutenant Fletcher back to the podium. I'm going to ask the other DCs moving a little bit closer.
Thank you, Chief Patterson. At this time, we'll open it up for questions for information you would like to have or that we presented today. So once I call on you, if you would give us your name, who you're with, and what your question is. Ward.
Michael Ward with WBTV. Chief, I guess I'd just ask, we appreciate y'all doing this, by the way, first of all. Is there a trend or a data point where you're most encouraged? And maybe on the flip side of that, is there a trend you saw as you reviewed the data where you're most concerned?
So when I just review the data, I mean, it's amazing to see reductions in violent crime and property crime. That's extremely rare. I have not seen that, but that is promising to us. But the violent crime, because that is really the focus, and I think that is what concerns people most in the community, that you will be a victim of a robbery or ag assault or even a homicide, unfortunately. And we don't want that. So as I see these homicide numbers going down, our ag assault numbers going down, we're going to make every effort to keep having them go down, to be in those places particularly that we know are problematic, that tend to see increases in crime. And I also know in our world today, we can't always predict that, right? Because it can happen anywhere. But we want to make sure that we have eyes and ears in all the places that we can to mitigate it as much as possible and to really rely on our community to help us, to be those eyes and ears for us. Yes, sir.
Chief Patterson, Kenneth Lee, WFAE. I'm not sure if you guys have seen a trend in pedestrian deaths last year, but I also want to know if there's any information on the hit and run that happened in the Eastway Division yesterday.
Okay, so I'm going to look to one of either DC Balmonkey or Riley. Do you want to address? Yes, sure.
So first question, reference to trends on
Pedestrian deaths.
Well, pedestrian deaths. So that's some information we'll have to get through our traffic unit. I know we are still very active with our Vision Zero program, where our motors units and our other traffic units pair with our division traffic officers, and they focus on those high incident and accident locations. And as far as the incident from yesterday, we'd have to get public information to get you an update on that. Thank you, sir.
Chief Patterson.
Yes.
Mayor Marquez, Charlotte-Mecklenburg, Charlotte. I would like to know how many of these 96 homicides involve Hispanic or Latino people?
Oh, wow. I don't know that we have that number broken down. Do we have that we can provide?
We do not, but we can provide that for you.
we will get that number to you. And I just want to say to you, thank you for being here, and I want you to know that I'm committed to making sure that we're in all our neighborhoods within Charlotte. We want to make sure that we have a strong relationship with our Latino communities. I know we already have one in Charlotte from when I was here before, but we want to continue to build that.
Question, Nina?
Yeah. CMPD actually has a great database on this that has a row for each person that was killed and has their race and ethnicity and gender. So if you check that out on their open data portal, you'll find it, if that helps.
Thank you for that.
My name is Caitlin McGlade. I'm a reporter at the Charlotte Observer. 2 questions. One, I was really interested when you said that one of the things that you're going to deal with is like addressing the perception of crime. That's something that we talk a lot about in our newsroom. Obviously, crime is going down, but there is this perception that crime is going up. We've had some politicians say that like crime is out of control. I've fact-checked them on those numbers. How do you address this perception that crime is out of control when it's really not? So that's the first question. Like, do you guys have strategies for that moving into 2026? And then my second question is, in your incident data, like when you classify a homicide as justifiable, I'm curious like how it ends up in there as justifiable, and therefore not ending up in the other homicide file where they are not justifiable.
Sure. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for fact-checking as well, because there are lots of comments concerning crime. As far as the perception of crime, the strategies that I feel that we need to employ, that we're talking about, is people have to feel safe. They have to feel safe wherever they are. Visibility of our officers, of our personnel, having those eyes and ears, the cameras that's capturing information and making those proactive arrests, I think goes a long ways, and then sharing that information with the public. On all our platforms, we're always pushing out the good stories of things that we're doing, but I know that and when we talk to individuals, they want to know like what is happening in their community. The more information that we can push out, I think that does affect the perception of crime. But really, basically for me, it is making sure that we have a visible presence, particularly in those areas where we tend to see crime occur. I think people feel safer when they walk around the neighborhood or their community and they see the presence of police officers. So I think that's the first step in us addressing the perception of crime, and then also using our technology so that we can capture information and then sharing that information with the public so they know that our homicides are down, they know that our aggravated assaults are down. Now, with respect to how we classify our homicides, I'm going to ask D.C. Butler if he can come and talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Ralph. Deputy Chief Ryan Butler, I'm the Deputy Chief for Investigative Services Group. So, unfortunately, investigations don't line up neatly with fiscal year or the end of calendar year. And so our numbers, I won't say evolve, but our numbers are subject to the investigative process. What happens in an investigation is once we come to the end of it, our homicide team sits down with the homicide prosecution team from District Attorney Merriweather's office, and we review our findings. And if an indication is that it was not a homicide, that an incident was an accident or an incident occurred in self-defense, we present our findings to the district attorney's office, and then the determination is made that it was not a homicide per with the provisions of NIRS. So we're always keeping ourselves in accordance with the reporting for each of these offenses as we report the numbers up to the FBI. And so sometimes when you see changes over the course of a year where you said it was 50 and now you're saying it's 49 or now you're saying it's 48, is because of incidents where either the determination was made that it was not a homicide and that it was a justified use of force in defense, or the determination is made that sometimes it is an accident or it is a suicide and not what the indication was initially when we responded to the scene.
Yes, sir.
Brett Jensen with WBT Radio. So I do want to talk about reality and numbers. The reality of the situation is that homicides are up 27% over the last 6 months compared to the first 6 months, 54 to 42. The 54 is 6% more than the same time period last year. So homicides are definitely up. That's a fact. That's a reality. So what is the difference between the first 6 months when there were 42 homicides to 54 homicides over the last 6 months, which again was even more than the last 6 months of last year?
Right. So because I was not here completely in 2025, again, I'm going to ask D.C. Butler to come forward to talk a little bit about that. But also, too, want to put things in perspective in that we have to recognize that this city is growing. It's a large city. that is constantly growing, and with any city that is growing, we have good growth, we have good economic growth, but also too, you have a criminal element that comes with that. Identifying who those individuals are, making sure that we're taking proactive efforts to reduce crime or to mitigate their action is really important to us. I think my expectation is that we continue to reduce crime, but we also have to look at all the factors that we are working with in a city, especially one that is growing so rapidly. But to your point, I don't know that maybe DC Butler can talk a little bit about maybe some trends we saw from the beginning in 2025 versus the end of 2025, and to your point, over the 6-month period.
Thank you, ma'am. So, and they're large numbers. I mean, we're splitting 6 months. So, without getting a little more micro, it's difficult to give you accurate aggregate responses. I mean, the reality is that sometimes the trends we see are related to a trend case we're working on, where sometimes there are oppositional groups that, because of the decisions they're making or the behavior they're engaging in, we have periods, acute periods of heightened violent crime, to which we, apply the appropriate resources and obviously conduct the investigations for. But as far as aggregate across the entire city, there's not a single answer to say, well, why was it lower in the first 6 months versus higher in the last 6 months? I mean, if you look at the trend line, break it out even more, our first quarter numbers last year were very, very low. May was the first year with a significant spike where we had 14. And then the summer, where we normally have traditionally or seasonally increased numbers, we had numbers that were no more than 9, across the entire summer. And then we got into the fall where we had a spike in October with 18. So there's not a single trend where I could say, well, this is what the city experienced, without getting in there and looking at the cases on, I don't want to say myopic to be narrow, but the fact that we have trends, but the trends are not 6-month trends or necessarily 3-month trends. Sometimes it's trends over 6 weeks or trends over 4 weeks, and then we're able to make gun seizures, make arrests of significant individuals, and then that leads to some of the reductions. The reality beyond that is sometimes we have a series of, poor decision making, which can be related to social media based things, people, that happen to run into each other at a club or at an event, have a disagreement. That disagreement turns violent. Where those incidents are isolated, but again, looking at them on an aggregate, it's like, is that acceptable? No, there's nobody in this room, there's nobody up here who's going to tell you that that's acceptable. If you say, how does the public feel? I would want the public to be dissatisfied with that and say, I'm not going to accept that. We don't want to accept that. And we welcome the public to hold us accountable for our actions and our response, because we want to provide the community with the police service that not only that they expect, but the police service that they deserve.
2 more questions. Yes, ma'am.
Juliana Montiel from La Noticia. Well, in fact, the victims, 16 of the victims were Hispanics, and most, 40% of them were only 16 years old. So what does that tell about the community, and what can be done to reduce this number?
And I think I'm understanding that you're saying, like, with our juvenile crime?
Yes.
DC, sure. Can you just address that?
So as we ended fourth quarter last year, we talked extensively about some of our juvenile repeat offenders, and as Chief Butler said, we do become very concerned about some of the decision making that some of our young people are making, whether it's based off of social media, based off of illegal narcotics, participate in a disagreement. And so that's one of the things that why our J team is so focused on trying to prevent some of these issues by making contacts with the parents, doing home visits, going to schools, trying to track some of these individuals down. And we can never actually truly capture the numbers, but we're able to prevent so many more incidents by just those early interventions that never happen. And so, again, we are always pleading with our criminal justice partners and our community partners to, kind of step in and help us, so that way, before we get involved in a situation, there's some type of intervention with some of our young people in the community to kind of help prevent those decision-making, those poor decisions.
Thank you. Last question. Any other questions?
Just a question. Maybe a question for Deputy Chief Butler. Might speak to this. I'm Patrick Wilson from the Charlotte Observer. Regarding the justified homicides, you mentioned consulting with the DA's office. This is just kind of like a question in the weeds. I'm curious, do you all consult with them on every homicide that would be ruled or found to be justified? Or does CMPD ever on their own make that determination and the district attorney's office is not involved?
No, we meet with them on every one of our cases. So whether it's justified or we determine that it was a criminal act, we actually have roundtable meetings with them every single week where we're sitting down with their homicide prosecution team. So if we have a case that we're investigating as a homicide and we believe that the findings of the investigation indicate that it was justified, we will sit down with them and present our findings to them. So we don't do anything unilaterally. They are our partners because neither one of us can do anything solely on our own. And so we appreciate their partnership. So no, on every case we do sit down with them and present our findings.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just close by saying, too, that the partnerships are just so important. When I first arrived here, I started meeting with all of our law enforcement partners, our federal, our local, state partners, and they have really stepped up. So I'm very thankful for our DA's office, for Spencer Merriweather, who makes himself always available to us for anything that we need, as well as our other partners across the spectrum. So moving forward, we will continue to rely on them. We welcome their help. We welcome their assistance in helping us deal with the kind of things that we're dealing with our city. I think it's very important that I keep amplifying that collaboration is what's going to help us keep our crime down in our city.
That concludes our public safety briefing for today. All the information that we have shared will be put out in a press release and put on our newsroom website, as well as our social media channels. Thank you to all of our speakers here today. And if you need these spelling of the speakers' names, they're behind me now. Thank you again all for being here. Have a great day.